Was good. I hope y'all are doing fine today, because I got something fine for you, and that is the final showdown between two limited legendaries. So let's introduce the competitors.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Cameo announcer, Mortar Mike. We have in the red corner, standing at very tall with a purple orb, with an incredible range of 5 to 6 tiles, depending on which one Moontime decides on, Death's Blossom, Dahlia. And in the blue corner, the one with the butt wings, the one that has the bond skill with Ymir, the amazing, the invincible, I don't know her actual title, the Silver Seraphim herself, Anora, who is going to win in today's match/face-off. Stay tuned to find out.
Today our competitors are going to compete in 5 different categories: Gear Raid 1, Gear Raid 2, Gear Dungeon 1, Gear Dungeon 2, and Guild Boss, with a special Dahlia Arbiter of Frost test, because Anora really doesn't have anything to do there. So yeah, let's get straight into the madness. So it's time for round 1. What you can see on the screen is my standard Gear Dungeon 1 test done with every single AoE mage, consisting of Hollow, Eowyn, Dolores, Laurel, Volker, Mary, and the mage in question, obviously boosted by an Epic Lord. What they're doing is, on their own, without any other damage dealers, fighting Gear Raid 120. On the graph you can see that Anora is at the very tippity top with, especially compared to pretty much everyone else, a 20% difference in DPS, so she does 540,000 damage per second. But this statistic is actually fairly deceptive, because all the other mages besides Anora were able to beat that stage by themselves. Dahlia, AMR Boreas, all those beat the stage by themselves, and Anora actually failed. So what happened here is that Anora does have quite strong AoE capabilities, but her damage is very spread out. So the plus point for her is that she hits a lot of targets. The negative is that she doesn't do all that much damage to these targets. So in comparison to the other units, the reason why her damage is so high is because she accumulated enemies at the wall, and those then proceeded to obviously break the wall, run through, and end her run at 5 minutes and 47 seconds. In those 5 minutes and 47 seconds, even though she was able to deal 186 million damage, she also was only able to kill 48 enemies. So overall, as dumb and as weird as it sounds, the way it is at the moment, with Anora not getting any rage buffs, not getting any invigoration buffs, not getting any buffs at all, even though she has an Imrit, and that is the important part. Imrit is her bond skill, so you need an Imrit for these results. She would perform even worse if she didn't have Imrit, which gives us the conclusion for round 1, and that is that Anora is getting pummeled.
Round 1. Fight.
Now, after round 1's conclusion, it is obviously time for round 2. Round 2 in this case is going to be Gear Raid 2. So Gear Raid 2, let's start with Dahlia and how she performed. So Dahlia's main issue is basically reliable either single or multi-target damage. What ends up happening is that her poison just takes too long to stack, and even with good gear she just doesn't get the necessary results. In this case, for Gear Dungeon 2, you would easily want to replace her with someone like a Comet, a Hatset. If you gave them all the same gear we gave Dahlia here, you would get the same result, if not better. So unless you give unreasonably high gear to all your tanks and everything complete, and you min-max completely everything, you're not going to get any reasonable results from Dahlia. Now on to Anora. Anora brings a very unique advantage to the table, and that is the fact that she can't get buffed by Dolores. So that pretty much opens up a free slot for you to put in someone else, And if you play your cards right, her rage is high enough that you could also take out Laurel, which means you would then have basically 2 free slots, but you would also need to use those. Even though she is able to deal with the first wave quite easily, in comparison to a Dahlia who needs someone like a Volcra, she won't quite be able to deal with wave 2 and 3, so you would need to bring other people there. And that is also kind of a lead up to the conclusion. Honestly, overall, I would say both of them pretty much disappointed when it came to Gear Raid 2, and all the other units you normally use are way more reliable, and I would highly recommend doing it with a Karmet, Hasset, Viana, or one of those instead.
Round 2. Fight.
Alright, now after this bit more disappointing Gear Raid 2 run, is Gear Raid or Gear Dungeon 1 or Gear Raid 4, is it going to be any different? And the answer is not really. So there's only pretty much one viable team for each of them. And that is the team you see on screen, which for various reasons requires Elowin, Artemis, Greed and Viana. So is that a team that's really attainable? No. Are Dahlia and Anora the only ones that could work in a team like this? Also no. So basically the only reason or the only way they can clear Gear Dungeon 1 is by trying to force them to work in teams that already work. In situations where other heroes are already performing, you're trying to put them in. Now, if some of y'all are questioning why exactly Anora isn't working at the bottom, that has to do with her not regenerating any rage besides despawning Laurel. So for the team at the top, we had to kind of change a bit around with a bit of tank deplacement, replacement to make her work. The bottom lane doesn't work for her at all. And the reason why Dahlia doesn't work at the bottom range is her range. So yeah, again, pretty much a draw.
Round 3. Fight.
Before we get to the last part of this video, if you appreciated the boxing edits and the time I've put into this video, feel free to leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe if you feel like it. And this has already been enough of the self-promotion. Let's get to the last part, which is the conclusion. Let's get to the conclusion. Why do we already get to the conclusion? That is because we are only at the moment left with content when none of them are useful, when none of them are made for. So, for example, what about Gear Dungeon 2? Gear Dungeon 2 just doesn't require AoE magic damage. You rather would want AoE single target magic damage. Guild Boss requires single target damage in general, and AoE really isn't effective there. If you want to know specific numbers, you can expect between 25 to 30 million from either Anora or Dahlia in Guild Boss, and that's something that can be doubled by a Wrath. Obviously 25 to 30 million with really good gear. Then we have the Titanic Ruins, which is a potential place where Dahlia is going to shine. I haven't specifically been able to test it out to the fullest extent yet, but I am pretty certain you can expect the same results from Dahlia on Guild Boss 1 as on Guild Boss 2, with the favor again being more towards single target units. If there were 5 Guild Bosses instead of that single one, Dahlia would obviously doing 5 times as much damage, but that just isn't the case. Next off we have Artifact Material Rate. Again, Artifact Material Rate favors more single target damage, or fighters, potential fighters with AoE, so an AoE mage really just doesn't have a space there, nor is there a need to use an AoE mage to clear that content. Lastly, another Dahlia bonus point, we have Dahlia in the Arbiter of Frost. People have been mumbling about Dahlia in Arbiter of Frost potentially being very great, potentially doing a bunch of damage, and I can tell you that is not really going to be the thing. It is not really going to happen, because she kind of has numbers that resemble a pre-poison nerf Cube. If I remember correctly, he should be somewhere in the 40 to 50 million range. So she's going to deal her 60 million, it's gonna be alright, but it's not gonna be so good that you need to summon her specifically for the Arbiter of Frost, like it is the case with other units like Ardea for certain other pieces of content. So what happens in Arbiter of Frost is that the usual suspects like Kratos, Zillitu, Anai and all the other already popular ones are still going to perform, and Dahlia isn't really going to come in and shake up the meta. I've tried it with a very simple team right here. That was pretty much a standard comp, and then we can even take a peek at what Mark Dare experimented here with full A5s, and you can see even his results were worse than mine. So yeah, don't expect Dahlia to do all that great here. And that already brings us to two scenarios in which Anora and Dahlia are going to get stronger. Let's start with the less likelier one, and that is going to be the devs lifting the restrictions on Anora. Let me tell it to you straight, let me tell it to you simple. As soon as you can invigoration buff Anora, we have another Boreas. It's that simple. Her damage would be outrageous. She's already pulling quite good numbers for the fact that she can't get Dolores buffed, and with the Dolores buff it just would be too much, and they would basically have to nerf her, but then give her the ability to be boosted by Dolores. Now, the a bit more likely of the thing of the two is that they lift the restriction on her not gaining any rage regen. So the only way she gets rage at the moment is by sacrificing Laurel, and that is not always possible in all situations and all stages. So I did already send the video to the devs. I'm already waiting for a response. As soon as I know more, you'll be the first ones to know. But for the moment, with the restrictions on her, she is as you've seen, right? And that's pretty much it. But there is a big plus point on her, and that is going to be the bond skill, which also is a negative, because again, everything you've seen in this video was done with the bond skill, because on the test server you can't deactivate the bond skill. So why would the bond skill be a buff and a debuff? A debuff in the sense that what you've seen here from Anora is going to be worse for you if you don't have Immerit, and then a buff because it really just gives something super unique to Immerit. And what it does is allows Imrit to respawn once after dying. So Imrit receives fatal damage for the first time, very important. First time he transforms into the Dragon Egg. If you defend this Dragon Egg for 20 seconds, he's going to revive, and that's just at the end of the day pretty unique. And also it gives him the chance to inflict an extra stack of Winter's Bite, which just is pretty strong, and his kit interacts quite well with Winter's Bite. So having her for him is really beneficial. So yeah, that's kind of like the Anora deal. If they give her Rage Regen or if they give her Invigoration, she's a safe pull, you should get her. If she stays the same, she is someone you can skip. Now Dahlia, the more likely of the two scenarios to happen, is going to be the future content scenario. Because like Edith before, Edith was introduced, Edith's kit was rather mediocre, and then the devs decided to introduce content where the ability to knock back units is really crucial, namely Gear Raid 2, or better said Gear Dungeon 2, where you can knock away a unit, and that stops Edith from getting exploded into nothingness. So now the fix for that is that you need to pretty much use 2 units instead of 1, and you also in the process are going to boost the boss if you're not using Edith. The same case is kind of going to apply to her, because where is she going to shine? Obviously content where she can just defeat a line and have her place at the end of that line, right? If she has her place at the end of that line, she can hit the whole line, she can poison, she can slow, she can do massive damage. Furthermore, she can even increase the block, so if you just place a unit in her range, she's going to place Blossoms in front, Blossoms behind, increase the block of that unit, make it even harder for units to pass. And overall, when it comes to defending a single line, she is gonna be unbeaten, which doesn't mean she's gonna be unreplaceable, but she's most likely again gonna be replaced in a 1 unit for 2 unit scenario, as it is always the case with units that have a unique kit or are particularly strong in a certain area. If you do want to replace them for certain pieces of content, it is always you need another unit plus someone else. And with the restrictions, most likely again being an 8th place stage unit or 8th place unit stage, you are going to run into an issue where you have to then find a specific character for another place, and if you then don't have the specific character there, then you really need to get creative or get super great gear. Basically, you're just going to put more load on you actually clearing the stage. So yeah, overall, it is very, very likely that we are going to see content where Dahlia is going to shine. Overall, she looks great aesthetically, and her range seems to be set in stone. So, should you all still go for Dahlia? I think, at least personally for me, the answer is going to be yes, because her kit is unique, and I mainly don't need her for anything else, because at the moment she really doesn't do anything else besides Gear Rate 1, but you don't need her for Gear Rate 1. I'm going to go for her, I'm going to get her, and then we're going to see what we're going to use her for in the future. For all of you here, honestly, when it comes to pulling for her just to clear Gear Rate 1, I would probably even recommend just waiting for the weekend and trying for Magda, because Magda works in Gear Rate 1 pretty much the same way she does, but also she has that added benefit of, for example, performing exceptionally well in Gear Dungeon 1 and in general probably most codexes, like especially Cyrus's one, which also is kind of the problem of Anora and Dahlia, and that is Codex. There is no Codex stage that requires AoE mages. That doesn't mean there won't be any in the future, which could be a buff to Dahlia, could be a buff to Carmet, could be a buff to Viana, could be a buff to all of them, right? But it's nothing we have at the moment, it's nothing you can grasp. So yeah, for those that have the resources summoned for her, you really want her in your arsenal rather than miss her. And I'm gonna summon for her tomorrow. I'm gonna do it live on stream. For those that want to join, feel free to do so. For those that want me to pull for you, feel free to just join at the time. Tell me to do it for you. I'm not really gonna keep any lists or bind people to times, because trying to organize that one day before the event happens is complete chaos. So we might actually do it for Anora, especially if she gets buffed. So this has been it, and we see each other in the next one.